It's a remarkable testimonial of what God can do in the 20th century when someone will simply believe Him and take Him at His word.
He was born normal, that is, except for his eyes. When little Chad was only a few weeks old, doctors discovered cataracts. They operated on him twice successfully, then conducted 2 separate examinations under anesthesia. But during the second exam, Chad's father said something went terribly wrong.
He was just like he was dead when they brought him back to us. And we knew that there was something wrong, and Chad wasn't himself. And this was when he was 8 months old.
Chad's mother, Sandra, had been a head nurse for years. She knew immediately her baby son was in serious trouble.
He was a vegetable. He would just lay there. You put him in a spot and that's where he'd stay. He wouldn't move around, he couldn't crawl, he couldn't communicate, he didn't know us.
Sandra and Andy took Chad to various doctors. None would acknowledge that Chad's extensive brain damage occurred in the hospital. But in one doctor's report, the implication was clear. It would appear, he wrote, that Chad was a normally developing child until age 8 months, at which time he sustained a catastrophic neurological event of uncertain etiology, which has resulted in an arrest of his growth and development. The doctor predicted Chad would get steadily worse. In my opinion, he said, Chad will progressively deteriorate, and at some point a decision regarding possible nasogastric feeding will have to be made. A second doctor wrote, I am afraid the child has a bad outlook in terms of anything useful being done to correct his steadily downhill course. Stripping away the medical language, Sandra and Andy say the doctor's bottom line was devastating.
Take him home and let him die.
They told us that he was going to die, that he would have to have a tube ran into his stomach to feed him, and that he would not live.
As she watched her baby lay limp in his crib, Sandra was especially worried about Chad's feet. They were tiny and were turning black from poor circulation. Doctors had said they could do nothing, so Sandra, who had been watching Success in Life, decided to go to a higher authority.
So I made a vow for his feet to grow and for him to walk. And that was on December the 29th. And then on January the 2nd of 88, he stood up, of 89, and he stood up and started walking that night. And during this few days, his feet had gotten real hot, and he would cry with them, and we didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if he was going to lose his feet. I didn't know what was going on. And during this time, his little feet started growing, and he's just been doing beautiful ever since.
Immediately after making the vow, within 2 weeks, we couldn't believe his feet because they had gotten to where we went and picked out the first size of regular normal shoes that you would put a baby in, and he outgrew those in just a small amount of time. I mean, like less than a month. He had outgrown them, and we had to go to another size.
In fact, little Chad's feet have continued to grow, from the tiny size of the booties in Sandra's left hand to the size of the shoe in her right, all in less than a year. But the miracle of Chad's feet was only the beginning.
Before the vow and before we made this vow, he didn't know anybody. He didn't know what Christmas was. He didn't know what his birthday was. He didn't know what TV was. He wasn't able to see. And after the vow, he knows who his mom and daddy, who his brother, his grandma. He can say he wants to go to his grandma's.
He can see some. He can talk. He can say his ABCs. He can count to 10. This is a child that was a vegetable now before and couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And he's up going and just doing beautiful. So I know vowing works. I know it works. Look at that, Chad. What is that? Cane.
Today, Chad continues to progress.
What is this, Chad?
Hat.
Hat. What is Daddy got? What is Daddy got?
Watch.
Watch. That's right. What is this, Chad? What have I got?
Green.
Green. That's right. What is this, Chad? What color?
Red.
Red.
The little boy who had no concept of Christmas now gingerly touches the ornaments and can see and feel well enough to handle a single strand of tinsel.
What color is it, Chad?
Blue. Blue.
Why do you think the vow worked in this case?
Because I truly had the faith that it would, and God says to trust Him and to vow. And everything we have belongs to Him anyway. It doesn't belong to us. I mean, it's not like you're paying Him to do this. You know, you're sacrificing something, and I knew we didn't have that money to pay. I knew this, and that hurt us to vow. $10 at that time would have hurt us, but it just worked. You know, God knew that we had the faith, and it worked.
Andy and Sandra have made many other vows since Chad's series of miracles, and Andy says his faith grows with each one.
It has gotten greater and better than I ever known faith could ever be. And I know now that through faith, anything is possible.